The Empress phaser has three different modes: knob mode, tap mode, and auto mode. You can select these modes by using the toggle switch in the top left-hand corner. We'll start with the knob and tap modes. With the selector switch set to either of these modes, the blend knob controls how much the affected signal is mixed in with the dry signal. When set fully counterclockwise, you'll get 100% dry guitar sound. As you turn up the blend, you'll start to hear the phaser effects mix in with the dry signal. First, here's the bypass signal. We're using a Strat through a Hot Rod Deluxe. When set completely clockwise, you'll have an equal blend of wet and dry. This is where you'll have the deepest phase cancellations. This knob can be configured internally to be a mix knob, which gives you the option of having a completely wet guitar signal when the knob is turned fully clockwise. This is covered in the configuration chapter of the video. Next, we'll look at the speed ratio knob. With the mode switch set to knob mode, this will control the speed of the phaser. The range of the speed is determined by the speed range toggle switch above. The speed range is divided into three settings: slow, which ranges from 0.1 Hz to 2.5 Hz, medium, which ranges from 1 Hz to 20 Hz, and fast, which ranges from 10 Hz to 100 Hz. With the phaser set to tap mode, the speed of the phaser can be tapped with the tap stomp switch. The speed knob now acts as a ratio knob. This means that the phaser speed will be whatever the tapped tempo is, multiplied by the ratio. For example, with a 1:2 ratio, the speed will be twice as fast as the tapped tempo. You can adjust the ratio with the knob without having to re-enter a tap. Tap mode is very useful for aligning the phaser to match a riff you're playing or to keep it in time with other musicians. It's probably the easiest way to set a specific tempo. To set the phaser to match your tap, make sure you're in tap mode. Set the ratio knob at 1:1 and tap the tempo you want using the tap switch. After 2 taps, the pedal will change tempo to match your taps. The phaser will average the last 4 taps you've entered to ensure accurate tempo. Sometimes faster tempos are hard to tap, or you want to have triplet-based phasing. This is easily done using ratios. You can set the ratio at 2:1, and it will double your tap speed. Or you can set it at 4:1, and it'll quadruple it. Triplets are accessible using the 2:3 and 1:3 ratios. The width knob lets you control the amplitude of the waveform, which is how far up and down the phase shift travels from the center position. Lower settings will give you a subtle phase, while higher settings will really exaggerate the effect. The gain knob controls the output gain. Set fully counterclockwise, there will be no output from the pedal. As you turn the knob up, the gain will increase through unity up to around +6 decibels. The point where unity gain is achieved varies depending on the other settings being used on the pedal. The stages switch selects the number of all-pass filters used in the wet signal. 2-pole sounds the least affected, and 4-pole is the setting you'll find in most one-knob phasers. The 3-pole setting is unique to the Empress phaser and sounds very different from both. The resonance switch allows you to add either a little or a lot of intensity to the effect by feeding the output of the wet signal back to the input. This emphasizes the frequencies between the cancellations to give you an even more heavily affected sound. The phaser comes equipped with 8 waveforms, which are selectable using the waveform rotary switch. There's a handy reference chart printed on the front of the pedal, which shows you the waveforms that are available. We'll spend a couple minutes going through each waveform and playing a little clip to give you an idea of what's available. First up is the good old sine wave. This could be considered to be the standard phasing sound. This waveform spends a lot of time at the extremes of the phase sweep, so the effect is fairly pronounced, but it feels very natural due to the circular nature of the motion. The triangle wave is similar to the sine wave, but spends more time around the center of the phasing range. The motion is more abrupt at the edge of the range, which gives the triangle wave more of a pulsing feel. The asymmetrical sine wave is modeled after some vintage phasers of the 70s. Due to shortcomings of their components, the sweeping motion was close to a sine wave, but ended up somewhere between a sine and a triangle wave. The result was very musical, and we're happy to have it available on the Empress Phaser 2. The swung sine is a sine wave that spends twice as long on the bottom half of the sweep as it does on the top half. The sawtooth waveform only phases from bottom to top. Once it reaches the top, it starts over at the bottom again. The reverse sawtooth is the opposite of sawtooth. It only goes from top to bottom. This can be useful in creating a delay-like quality in your playing without actually using a delay. The square wave just jumps back and forth from the lowest to the highest amount of phase. You can set how far apart these values are using the width knob. The last waveform is a step phaser. It's basically a square wave that randomly jumps to a different phase value on each beat.